everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and I love to do sewing and DIY projects, and this week I really want to challenge myself and make a trench coat. So this is my first time making a trench coat. I've never made one before, but I recently came across this trench coat by Damson. It popped up on my For You page on Instagram and I became completely obsessed, and I think it has gone quite viral since then. And yeah, I checked out their website and unfortunately I can neither afford it nor could I buy it anytime soon because it is sold out. And this kind of sparked the idea in me that I maybe could try to recreate this because I think this is such a cool silhouette. I love the button placket, that it's kind of moved to the side, and I love that it's reversible. I think it's just such a cool coat overall. And it is September, so this is the perfect time to wear one. But I unfortunately really didn't know where to start until my Instagram algorithm really delivered again and I saw this reel by this creator here. And she featured the Damson coat and it popped up on my For You page and I watched the reel and I became obsessed. Because in there the creator mentions that you could maybe try out the Darcy coat by Modern Sewing Co., which I own. I own that pattern for a couple of years now and I've completely forgotten about it. To add to the complexity of this challenge, I actually need to finish the jacket in quite a short time because I'm going to Stockholm and I would really love to wear the jacket in Stockholm simply because I think it's the perfect autumn jacket. However, I would really like to keep the cost down for this project because honestly I've never made a coat before and I don't know how it's gonna turn out. So I went thrifting for some fabric. I found this lovely dress right here which has this nice plaid pattern. And then for the outer layer I'm going to use some cotton canvas. This is the only thing basically that I ordered new. All of the other items that I'm going to use are secondhand. So my first step is actually just to rip apart the dress. I'm gonna cut along the bodice and the skirt section, and I also will try to remove the sleeves, and then I can see how much fabric I'm actually working with. So this is the fabric that I have. So this is sort of this weird flap that was over the bust. It has this very cute purple trim. I might try to use that for some areas of the jacket, honestly. So I'm just collecting my pattern pieces for the Darcy coat, and I will essentially use the back panel and shorten it. I need to figure out how long I want my coat to be, and then I'm using the front panel obviously as well as the sleeve, and then I'll just do my normal collar stand and collar. So this is my first pattern layout, and as you can see it barely fits. So this is the skirt section of my dress, and here you have the front panel. You need to cut that out 2 times, and as you can see I left like 10-15 centimeters just for the buttons, because if you look at the original picture again you see that the button closure, or like the front opening, is moved to the side, and I need a bit of room for that. And I also started drafting my front pocket pieces. The original has these nice, I guess like almost trapezoid sort of shape like pockets, and I just took a piece of paper like a rectangle and I cut off one of the edges. I'm not super sure. I drew in some more lines because I might shorten it a little bit, but I think this is like the measurement that I have for now, and I can always cut it a bit smaller if I want. And I will use, I think, this piece from the flap to create my pocket, because I think it has this very nice ribbon going on here, this purple ribbon. Okay, so I've just cut out my pocket piece, and as you can see I try to include the already existing trim and the already existing seam here so that my life is a little bit easier. And then I just ironed and pinned the edges where I just cut my pieces. So I will sew that down maybe once or twice so that everything is nice and secure, especially this part here where your hand would slide in. And I'm kind of thinking if I should alter the design a little bit and have these colorful pockets on my plain cotton canvas. I think this could be a nice accent actually. So last night you saw me cutting out my cotton canvas fabric, and I slept on it and I really hate the color. I think this is not very much a light green as described in the internet, but it's very much gray, and it's very, very cool tone, and it's also absolutely not my color. I don't think it suits me at all. And if we look at my checkered fabric here, I think it just doesn't really work that well, because the colors here are quite warm and then this is just too cool toned. And since I want to have some of these accents here, I think I need to change the color. So I just went out and bought some fabric dye in olive green, and I hope that works. This is sort of the color that it's supposed to be. This appears a bit darker on camera, honestly, but I think this tone works so much better with my checkered fabric, because this is basically the same color. Oh, I'm so excited. I hope this worked. Okay. I mean, it looks pretty even. This is not showing accurately on camera, but oh shit. There was a lot of fraying. Oh man. But so far I don't see any stains, just a lot of frayed fabric. Okay, so I have attached my inside layer as well as my outside layer together on the shoulder seams. I think I'm gonna start attaching the collar now and close up the neck seams that I have going on here. So I will basically be sandwiching my collar in between and combining these layers right sides together. Okay, I have attached the collar, as you can see, but I did a little mistake and I initially wanted the opposite color to show, and yeah, I switched it and I didn't pay enough attention, and now it's on and I'm not sure if I feel like changing it, because this whole project, oh my god, it's so hard. Yeah, so I kind of need to decide that later, but for now I just wanted to have a look at the pocket placement. So this is just very, very loosely stitched on here, but I wanted to have a contrasting pocket basically on either side. So that would be the contrasting pocket, and here you can see the collar is kind of just blending in, and I think it would look so nicer if it was this checkered fabric as well. I like the accents. And then, as you can see, I have not attached my side seams or anything. This is just like a rough sketch for the front. And I think I can definitely shorten one of my sides here, because they are both very, very long. And I don't need that much of an overlap actually, because it's always the same panel that does the closing. So on the other side, it's the same panel with the pocket, but just the sides are switched. So one time it's on the left and one time it's on the right. And I just love how the new cotton canvas color complements my checkered colors here. I think that looks so much better than what I had before. So it's been a couple of days, or I think even a week, since I last worked on this. So I'm not really sure what I showed you last, but I basically finished my sleeves. So I French seamed them together, as you can see right here. And now I have like this nice and clean seam. And yeah, I did it for both of the sleeves, and I also sort of, yeah, made sure that everything fit together. I needed to readjust the pattern pieces a little bit because, yeah, as you saw, I had a lot of fraying from dyeing my fabric. And yeah, I've now completed both of the sleeves here, and I basically have my shell of the jacket. So I've attached my collar as well, and as you can see, it's now how I wanted it to be initially. So you would have the checkered collar on the simple green fabric, and if you would flip the jacket inside out, it would be the opposite. So yeah, I've attached everything on like the shoulder seams, but I have not yet attached my side seams. So that is something that I still need to do. And then afterwards I can attach the pockets and I can start sewing my front panel together here, so where my button placket would be. Oh my god, I just finished the sleeves, or not completely finished, but I at least attached them. As you can see, they're like a little bit oversized and drop shoulder sleeves. But I'm so proud of myself. This was such a hard thing to do, honestly. I struggled so much. And I think it starts to come together. It really starts to look like a coat. And I also love that I did the contrasting collar. I think that adds such a nice little detail. I just pinned the pocket very roughly in place because I think this panel here is still too wide, honestly. I think I could chop it down maybe like so, or even a bit more. I need to check that. This will be my next step to attach my pockets. And yeah, I'm super happy. I have to show you the inside because obviously the inside is a bit rough, but I have a plan. So that is what the inside seam looks like. As you can see, this is sort of the raw edge of the seam. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to do a French seam on here. The fabric was just so thick and my needle kept breaking. It was honestly a horrible experience. So I decided, never mind, let's just do it this way to give me some peace of mind, and then I can add some bias binding to this side of the sleeve and match it up with like the checkered fabric. Or I could even, because I have I think a seam allowance of 1.5 centimeters, could even trim it down and just hand stitch my seam allowance down here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that. I think the bias binding might be the better option because it's not as fiddly. But yeah, that is what the other side would look like. And I decided to go with the bias binding route simply because I know that I will wear the green side much more often. Honestly, because yeah, green is my favorite color and I think this is a bit too statementy for my everyday life. But I still want to have the option. So I think adding the bias binding works in my case, and I can just hand stitch it on so that I don't have any visible seams on the outer side, because I think I'm gonna iron my seam flat towards the end of the sleeve. I think that makes more sense. And just, yeah, have a little piece of fabric that basically covers the raw edge of the seam here. Yeah, so this will be the next step to figure out how much of an overlap I want. Now it's about, let's say, roughly 15 to 20 centimeters on both sides, which is too much, I think. But maybe I can trim it down to 10 or even 7 centimeters, something like that, because I still want to have the asymmetrical look, but I think I need to I need to reduce it a little bit, because otherwise I think it looks a bit ridiculous. And yeah, I have my pockets here. I still need to place my other pocket on the other side, and I think I will attach the pockets separately. Right now my two layers, they're quite easily detachable, honestly. So I think in my case it is easier to attach each pocket to each individual layer. And for the sleeves, as you can see, they have a lot of raw edges right now. I think I might just either do a bias binding for the sleeve edge here, or also fold over the sleeves once and then twice. That means that I would have a little bit of this fabric showing, but I think that looks actually quite nice. And the sleeves are long anyways, and yeah, this might be the cleanest solution. front overlap piece, and I measured it now and it's 13 centimeters. So for anyone recreating this, I chose to make this 13 centimeters, and this way it sort of sits underneath the other collar side basically. And then I attached my pocket, and I made sure to leave enough room here for the buttons and the buttonholes. And after that I can sew on the pocket for the other side basically. And once I've attached all of my pockets, I can start attaching the front sides here and sort of make the button placket. And I hope that I can put the two sides, right sides together and basically turn it inside out, because I'm leaving the bottom opened, and I will do the bottom opening sort of as the last thing. Okay, so I have sewn everything right sides together, and now I will try to turn it inside out. I also started to attach the bottom of the jacket right sides together, and I left a very big opening in the middle. So yeah, that I have something sort of to guide me when I need to close everything off. And I also mitered the corners here, so I cut them off. And yeah, hopefully this now works out. I'm a bit scared, but in theory everything should be correct. But honestly, this project was so hard on my brain, so let's see. So I've just ironed all of my bias binding. Well, it's not really bias binding because it's not on the bias, but it will fulfill the purpose of a bias binding. So I want to add it to the end of the sleeve here, as well as the seam up here. So I've created two different bindings, and I would just sew them on to the checkered side of the fabric, and then hopefully for this seam here I can just basically fold it over like so, and then maybe hand stitch this part so that you don't have a visible seam on my green fabric layer. I'm not sure that it's gonna work, but I'm gonna try at least. And then here, this is just a normal sleeve binding. This will be super easy. And then after that, I think I can finish my bottom hem. As you can see, I left a little opening down here, and I just ironed my seam allowance so that I can just top stitch everything together. So I basically want to top stitch all around the jacket, also where the buttons will be, and I'm also gonna top stitch my collar in place just down here so that everything is nice and secure. And yeah, once that is done, I can start with my buttons and my buttonholes, I think. So I just did the bias binding for the sleeve hole here, and I was able to attach the binding directly to my seam allowance, and I think that looks quite clean, or at least like the cleanest that I could get it to look, because this is quite a lot of layers of fabric and it was very hard to sew through. So I just got some buttons from my favorite secondhand shop. It is so hard to make a decision. If you look at the inspiration picture of the jacket, you can actually see that they only used 3 buttons, which I'm not sure if I think that's smart, honestly, because the flap at the bottom is kind of open, as you can see here. So I think I would like to have the option to button up the lower part of the jacket as well. So yeah, tough call. I think maybe I go with these. I really like the brown color. It's such a nice warm brown. And now I just need to find equivalent buttons for the other side, which sort of have the same dimensions, or roughly the same dimensions, because the buttonholes will be the same, just the buttons that will be different on the green fabric side and then on the checkered fabric side. And then it was already time to take the train to Stockholm. And honestly, I had such a great time in Stockholm. The weather was perfect. I went to a lot of cute cafes and cool secondhand and thrift shops. And yeah, I just had a great time with my friend and was so lovely. And I got to wear my jacket, which was amazing. And thank you everyone for watching this video and commenting or subscribing. That really helps me out. And I recently made a coffee page. So if you would like to buy me a coffee and support my work, that would mean the world to me. The link is in my description, and this just helps me so much for getting videos out and sharing my creative projects with all of you guys. So thank you, and now it's time to show you the reveal.